welcome back to the show. I know that when I do the show, we're talking comic books, and but tonight's we're going a little comic book adjacent due to my love of Masters of the Universe. It's as a kid of the '80s, I remember coming home from school and watching the old cartoon, and as I was just telling our guest Mackenzi Lee, who is here to talk about her new young adult novel. I still have all the toys. I mean, we're talking, if you know those big like tall popcorn buckets you get during the holidays, about 3 of those are full of action figures. So, but enough about me. Let's find out about our guest and her new book. So, Mackenzi, welcome to the show.
Hi.
I was getting a little too talky there, but
that's okay.
So before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself and how your origin story with Masters of the Universe.
How I came to be here. Well, my name is Mackenzi Lee. I am an author of books for people of all ages. Here today to talk about my new book, which is called Teela, Daughter of Erternos, and it is an official tie-in novel with the Masters of the Universe live-action film that is coming out at the beginning of June. And the book comes out on June 2nd, films out on June 5th. So you can, it is a book for fans of the cartoon, for new fans of the movie, for anyone who likes a sort of swords and sorcery style world with a lot of camp and a lot of humor, but also a lot of heart to it.
And so, what's your He-Man and the Masters of the Universe story? Is it a property that you're familiar with?
So I was not. Apparently, I've been told that I was an action figure kid. I loved action figures. My sister and I had all the Star Wars action figures. We had popcorn buckets full of Star Wars action figures. And I don't remember this, but I've been told there was a Castle Grayskull that we would use to create new locations for our Star Wars figures. So we had a little crossover going on there. But so I had not thought about He-Man or the Masters of the Universe. I was peripherally aware of it. Had not thought about it until I got an email from my agent about a year and a half ago asking if I wanted to audition for this project. And it was with an editor at Mattel who I'd worked with before when I wrote for Marvel. And I really wanted to work with her and love her and respect her and thought, yeah, let's see what this is all about. And ended up kind of diving headfirst into the world of this cartoon and the sort of larger universe around it. And now I'm standing on the other side of it, truly a fan of all things Masters of the Universe. Like I love the old cartoons. I love the new stuff that they did on Netflix. I just love the fandom around it. I love the world. It's so silly and fun and joyful. I have really truly become a fan of this verse, as it were. And I got to see the new film the other night, and it's amazing. And I'm so excited about it, and not even contractually obligated to say that. I had such a good time.
So let's before we get talking about the book, you mentioned that you have worked with Marvel. Kind of tell us about your career.
So my career in general, or my Marvel career?
In general, and include the Marvel stuff.
Okay, great. So I'm best known for a series of historical fantasy books I wrote for young adults. The first one's called The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. The second one's The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy. And the third one is The Nobleman's Guide to Scandals and Shipwrecks. And they all three together form the Montague siblings trilogy. So they are a series of sort of tropey adventure novels set in the 1700s. The first one is about a young British lord who's on his grand tour of Europe before he has to go home and become a functioning member of society. So it's sort of his last hurrah with his sister in tow, who he's not a big fan of, and then also his best friend, who he's been secretly in love with since childhood. And their tour goes horribly off course, and they end up stealing a magical artifact that lands them as sort of the targets of this manhunt across Europe. So they're fun, they're campy, they're tropey, they're a little bit magical, but they're also romantic and are pretty popular. People seem to like them. And because of those books, I got to write for Marvel as well. So I've done 3 novels for Marvel that all serve as origin stories for anti-heroes in the Marvel universe. So the first one I did was about Loki. It's called Loki, Where Mischief Lies. and it is about a greasy teenage trickster Loki going to Victorian England and dealing with Victorian zombies and trying to decide if he wants to be a good guy or a bad guy and if he has any say in that at all. And then I wrote a book about Gamora and Nebula from the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, and sort of seeing them earlier in the canon than we had seen them before as young trainees / daughters of Thanos. And then I wrote a book about the Winter Soldier, which is half set in World War II, half set in the Cold War, about both Bucky Barnes and the Winter Soldier, and this intersecting mystery that bridges those two identities. So as a huge Marvel fan, as a big just general nerd, they were amazing projects to get to do. And I feel like they really prepared me well to be part of the Masters of the Universe oeuvre, especially Loki. I feel like the Masters stuff has so much in common with Thor, and with that sort of, it's got the tech, but it's also got the swords and sorcery, and it's got the sort of royal lineage and the grandiosity, but it's funny and kind of sweet, and I just like it has a lot in common across the two franchises.
So why don't we just jump right into the book, and why don't you kind of tell us about, give us kind of the larger story arc and how it ties into the movie.
Yeah. So for your fans who are not Masters of the Universe people, what you sort of need to know is the world of Eternia is where the book is set. And where the film is set. And Adam, who is the Prince of Eternia, has a best friend. He's sort of the main character. He, no spoilers, becomes the titular He-Man of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. But he's sort of at the start when we meet him, he's sort of the weak, the small little prince who would rather talk than fight, and is sort of scrappy and not sure how he feels about his role in the world. And he has a best friend whose name is Teela, and she is the opposite of him. She's tough and she's strong and she's really good at fighting. And her father is the king's man-at-arms. So he's in charge of the royal guard. And Teela has sort of lived all her life with the assumption that will be her destiny too. She will take over the royal guard. She will work in the royal guard. Her life is dedicated to protecting the king and his family. And then Eternia falls to the great villain known from so many iconic memes, Skeletor. And Adam disappears. The king and queen are captured / vanish. And Teela is left as a young person with this band of ragtag rebels that are surviving on Eternia, avoiding Skeletor, and trying to regroup and figure out what to do next. And so the book is set sort of in this gap in the movie between the fall of Eternia, and then we catch up with Adam when he's an adult. And so the book is about what Teela's been up to during that time with this group of refugees. And I was very compelled when I was brought sort of this pitch of where they wanted it to fit in the movie by the story of a young woman who sort of had her present but also her future taken away from her. Like, she's prepared her whole life to be this one thing, and now she realizes she has prepared for a world and a position that does not exist anymore. And how do you sort of reorient yourself, especially as a young person who is already working so hard to sort of figure out what kind of adult you want to be? How do you reorient yourself and find a new identity in a world that doesn't exist anymore? And how do you prioritize sort of self-discovery and self-knowledge when you're also just trying to survive? And I was really, really compelled by that idea. I think I've been feeling very unmoored in the sort of current world that we have going on around us. So I related a lot to Teela and that idea of sort of reorienting and refinding yourself in a world you didn't expect to ever be living in. And I just I love her as a character. She's exactly the kind of character that, had I known about Masters of the Universe as a child, I would have gravitated immediately to Teela. She's tough and she's smart and she's strong, but she's also, especially in the book, because she's still a teenager, she's still vulnerable and she's figuring out who she is, and she's scared to ask for help, but has to learn that strength comes in many forms, which is also sort of what the movie thematically explores, but also I think the entire Masters of the Universe franchise explores. It's about questions of identity and being your best self, and what it means to sort of to excel and to have the power, as it were. And I think it's such a great question across the entire franchise that it is explored in so many fun and compelling ways. And I hope the book does that too.
So how did you go about learning about Teela? Because I mean, from the 80s, she's changed from the 80s cartoon to the early 2000s cartoon to the recent recent Kevin Smith, you know, Masters of the Universe series. So how did you go about, learning about the character and then using that to formulate the character that you present?
Well, truly, one of the greatest days of my life was I got to go, one of the greatest days of my professional life, but also personal life, was I got to go to the Mattel offices here in Los Angeles. And I got to go to He-Man School, where they gave me an extensive presentation about the brand, but also the characters and the history and sort of how everything fits together and what version came next and who was working on what. And I had to take a quiz called Who Said It, Skeletor or Blanche from the Golden Girls, which I passed, thank God, or else I'm sure they wouldn't have given me the job. But so I got sort of a foundational knowledge about Teela from that course, and then from all the studying I did after, which was I watched a ton of the cartoons, even though the cartoons are sort of now divorced from the version of the world that we were working in based on the movie. I got to read the script, which was super fun and a super cool thing to get to do. I got to see a lot of pictures from the set that were coming into me, so I could see sort of visually the world that Travis Knight and the film team were creating, and then reference and sort of recreate that in my book. I also got to talk to, I had people at Mattel on standby essentially all the time I was writing, that I could send an email and be like, hey, we got to fight a monster. What would be a great monster for them to fight here? And they would write back and be like, oh, well, there's already an established canon character that you could bring these in, and here's all their history, and here's the times they appear in the cartoon. And like, there's so many great resources from the fandom as well. Like there's I think it's Wiki Grayskull. There's a whole Masters of the Universe Wikipedia. There's Masters of the Universe like character dictionaries. People have gone through and like charted and referenced every time that the characters have appeared. But I think for Teela, her biggest change is when she sort of appeared in the 80s. She had kind of that 80s token female character sensibility to her, where she's like, they're like, we got to have a girl. And her entire identity is
no, I've been captured again.
Yes, yeah. And then she has to go, oh, where's Adam gone? He's never around when I need him. I don't know. I guess He-Man's here now, which truly is like my favorite thing in the world every time that happens. And it's all the characters that do that, not just her, but it just delights me every time when they're like, where's Adam gone? He-Man, have you seen Adam? Exactly the same looking person, except wearing different clothes. Love it.
Yeah.
The suspension of disbelief is incredible.
It's the the brief of animal hair that throws people.
Right.
Kind of
right.
like Clark Kent's glasses.
Yeah, exactly. The Clark Kent's glasses of Masters of the Universe is the hairy loincloth. What a comparison. But so I think Teela's come a long way, especially I love the Kevin Smith stuff. It's Revelation and Revolution and Revelation. Is that what the two are? Which are very centered around Teela. I loved watching those. I loved seeing his interpretation of her, but she's really like come into her own as a central character. And I love that the film and that his work as well gave her sort of a life outside of Adam and then her father, Duncan, the man-at-arms, as sort of the two characters that always define her. And I think that's been the biggest evolution for her. And she's still growing as a character. We still have a long way to go in terms of female representation in these kind of big blockbusters, sandals, sorcery kind of films. And it's great and exciting to be part of the legacy of people who are helping shape this already like terrific and exciting and strong character and make her like an even more compelling piece of the canon, and someone that hopefully a lot of people will be able to see themselves in.
So what do you feel that, you've kind of already talked about where, the characters come from. Were you able to, add anything to the character that you feel makes her a stronger character other than what, the textbook character Bible that Mattel gave you?
Yeah, for me, I really like discovering her humor. Because the Masters of the Universe is a funny franchise. Like, it's very silly. It has a lot of jokes. The new film has a lot of jokes. Like, it doesn't take itself too seriously. And that was something that Mattel sort of presented me with from the get-go. They're like, we don't want this to be a super serious, somber sort of tone to the book. And I like to write funny things. I like to write things with levity. So that really appealed to me early on. And I loved writing sort of Teela's humor at this moment in time because she's a teenager. So she's a little bit snarky and a little bit like rolling her eyes at her dad. She's sort of the only one of the only young people among this group of refugees and rebels that has survived. But also, I really enjoyed writing her and helping shape her and define her through her relationships with other women in the world around her. So there's an original character that I got to create for the book, who's one of the other survivors from the Palace Guard, a character called Locke, and she's sort of Teela's foil among the refugees, and they sort of butt heads in terms of their ideas about what we need to do next in order to save our people and save our planet. And they have different ideas about what it means to protect Eternia. And then also Teela develops a sort of a tentative alliance, let's say, with Evelyn, the greatest named character in all of fiction. Obsessed with the character that just comes in hot. She's like, I'm Evelyn, here I am, you know my alliance. But so I loved getting to write Evelyn in the book because, again, she sort of is presented for Teela as like, here is another option for my future, which is not to say that Teela is ever at risk of joining Skeletor, but she has sort of, here is a woman who is on her own, has formed her own alliances, is protecting herself and taking care of herself and putting herself first sort of unapologetically and doing what she has to survive. And I think Teela finds a lot of kinship between her and Evelyn, in spite of the fact that they're on sort of opposing sides of this fight, just in terms of as she's redefining herself through survival, she sees someone who is also doing that in a different way. So for me, it was a lot of it was bringing characterization to Teela and shaping her into sort of the woman she is when you see her in the films through her relationships with, especially these two women. But I mean, all the characters in the book. It was fun to write her relationship with Duncan, with her father, who sort of has burned out after his failure to protect the king and his family. Her relationship with the other people in the group. It's just like, I think relationships are what define us, and how we act and how we treat other people, especially in times of crisis, are so important and so character defining. So that was a little bit of how I approached writing her and expanding her character. And it was fun to just sort of have like a starting point in the film, which is you see young Teela, and then sort of an ending point in the film where you see her when she's played by Camila Mendes, and to sort of get to fill in that gap and see like, how do we take her from this young girl to this woman?
Are there any other characters that people would recognize that you were able to use that? Because I watching the first time I saw the trailers, like, oh, there's Mecha Neck and there's Ram Man.
Okay, I was so excited. I just whacked my computer. Can we talk about what a delight it is that I just love working at a franchise where there are characters unironically named Ram Man and Mecha Neck. Like it's so silly and fun and delightful. And it's just like, you can't take yourself too seriously when you're like writing a character called Ram Man. Yeah, I know. I just like, it's so fun and silly. Evelyn's the big one in this book. She was the one aside from Teela, she was the character I was most excited to write. And as soon as I learned of her existence, I was like, can she please be in the book? And they were like, yes. And so she's sort of the big cameo, but there's a bunch of other characters who fans will recognize. They're maybe a little bit, not disguised, but they're sort of, because you're approaching them from Teela's point of view instead of Adam's point of view, you might see them in a different light. I won't spoil who they are. Sure. I don't know if I'm allowed to spoil who they are. But there's definitely familiar characters. And then there's some familiar locations and monsters and creatures and references from like the old cartoons that hopefully people who are the real diehards will recognize.
Now, because I know over the years they've kind of made Teela, I think if I remember correctly, she's the sorceress's daughter. Do you keep the magic stuff out, or is that
magic plays a little bit into this book? She's working with Evelyn at one point, and Evelyn is the sorceress, so she's showing Teela how to access the sort of magic of Eternia that is available to everybody if they know how to use it. We don't specifically get into the lore around Teela's mother or her sort of unique magical abilities, and I think that's because they haven't decided they don't really touch on that in the film, and so I think they haven't decided what they're going to do with that if they make future films. So for now, that piece of the canon has been put to the side. But she is Duncan's daughter, which I know is sometimes in canon she is, and sometimes she's not. But I think we've settled on the fact that she is the daughter of the man at arms. But her mother is still a big old question mark.
So when you were talking about the books you've written for Marvel, those are characters that kind of operate in that gray area of things. Loki is either good or bad depending on how they feel. um, Gamora and as the daughters of Thanos, then they're not out passing out cookies or and then the Winter Soldier is kind of a story of redemption, doing bad stuff and then trying to make up for that. So is it easier to write those morally gray characters or writing a character like Teela who's absolutely definitely good?
I think it's harder to write the definitely good characters because I think I most relate to the morally gray anti-heroes because I think with very few exceptions, I think most of us are sort of morally gray anti-heroes. So I tend to relate more to characters that act selfishly, that act in their own self-interest, that are still sort of figuring out and making variable decisions based on sort of their mood every day. I think those true lawful good characters are hard to write because it's hard to motivate decisions in a way that feels realistic because I think realistically we just don't, there's very few of us that can make decisions that are all 100% good and noble and Captain America all the time. And Teela, the way I kind of snuck around that in this book is that because she's still a teenager, she's still figuring out her own identity. So she's by no means an anti-hero. She would punch Loki in the face if she saw him. But she is sort of recognizing that especially the world has shades of gray, whereas before she had always been taught that sort of we are the good guys, Skeletor and his team are the bad guys. They did this bad thing that is all bad 100%. We are the good guys. And recognizing for her, I think that the world doesn't always operate like that and that the world is more shades of gray than she had been taught to believe, especially in her youth and in her training in the King's Guards. That for her becomes like a very defining factor of her journey across the book. And then I think her journey into adulthood is recognizing that like there are shades of gray. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's all good all the time, but we do our best with what we have. And we give each other grace and kindness and we help fill in the gaps where other people fall short.
So how do you, looking at the bigger picture, how do you go about plotting out the book? And while staying within the parameters or the sandbox that Mattel gave you to play in?
Yeah, it's a lot of communication is the main thing with Mattel. From the start, sort of talking to them and saying, what do you envision this book being? And what are your parameters? What are your guardrails? And the things they sort of gave me from the get-go were just that they wanted it to be about Teela. They wanted it to take place in this sort of time jump in the movie to fill in these sort of missing years. It had to function as sort of like a pocket episode, like nothing could really happen in the book that is going to enormously affect because there's no like, they're not going to rewrite the film to get to meet the book. So it had to sort of like, I mean, they should, obviously. Everyone should be working around me at all times. But so that was sort of the parameters I was given. And then as I learned more about Masters of the Universe, as I dove more into the lore, I sort of picked out things that were most interesting to me. One of them was Evil-Lyn. I was like, this book needs a bad guy. Could Evil-Lyn be sort of the primary antagonist? And they were like, we love that because we don't want Skeletor sort of the looming big bad of the whole book, but they wanted like a smaller, more contained villain. So they were like, yeah, we would love it if Evil-Lyn would be the main bad guy. I said, great, here are some of the characters I want to include. And they did a little bit of back and forth of like, oh, well, he's not in the movie, so we don't want to include him. We've got this, so we just like, we talked all the time. And I went through and I told them like, this is where I want to set it. This is an existing location. Can you help me? So I'm not crossing the canon here. And they said, yeah, here's a bunch of photos from what it looks like in the movie. Here's the times, so we just like, we talked to each other all the time. And the team at Mattel was so helpful and so communicative. And it's such a fine line to walk to feel like you're successfully working within an existing property, but also it doesn't feel prescriptive and stifling and like you have someone standing over your shoulder being like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And And they were so great about helping me sort of walk that line where I felt like I had so much creative freedom, and they were so clear about hiring me for me. Like they wanted me to bring my voice and my ideas and my take on this character. And they were there to support me by propping up sort of the world around it. So the big key for that, is communication. And also I think for me, it was about being honest and enthusiastic to them about what most excited me. And when they said, like, what about bringing in this character? I just had to be like, nah, I don't really vibe with that character. I'd rather talk about this one instead. Like it was just
I'm not going to get a buzz off appearance.
I'm sorry, there is not in the book. No, the deleted scenes. I'll have to send you the deleted scenes.
At least tell me Manny Faces is mentioned or Moss Man.
Oh, I mean, Moss Man, never say never.
So yeah, I know you said you also kind of go back and read. The He-Man characters when I was growing up came with a little comic book. Did you also kind of check those out to kind of get a feel for?
I did. I sort of dipped my toe into everything. The directive from Mattel was like, we are working within the movie. The movie is going to be very strongly adhering to previous canon that has come before it. Like it's not trying to reinvent the wheel or break away or do something new. This is not like a dark, edgy take on He-Man. Like we're going to do what we've done before, but we want you to stay within it is, I'll just quickly shout out, the movie is just like an 80s cartoon brought to life. Like it's exactly tonally so in line with everything that has come before it in terms of Masters of the Universe, I think. And Travis Scott, the director, gave a speech at the premiere where he talked a little bit about how so many people involved in sort of the big decisions on the movie project were fans of the original cartoon. They grew up on that cartoon. They love that cartoon. And he's like, we came to this project wanting to make not an ironic or snide or like winky, jokey, isn't this dumb kind of take on He-Man. He's like, we all love this property and we wanted to bring this property to sort of its full blockbuster glory as it is. And I thought they did such a great job of that. But so yeah, that all that being said, I dipped my toe into a little bit of everything. One of my favorite things I learned was actually there's a great Netflix series called The Toys That Made Us, which is all about how a bunch of different toys came to be created. And so they have an episode on Masters of the Universe. And boy, those guys who were designing those figures were just making it up as they go. And it's such a delightful episode. I would really it's a great series. I would recommend it to everyone. But the Masters of the Universe episode, they talk about how they went in to pitch the toy line to Target didn't exist. Like not TJ Maxx. What's one that did? I don't know. Toys R Us. There we go. That's it. There we go. Yeah, to something. And they pitched the toy line. They're like, here's all our characters, everything. And the Toys R Us buyers were like, boy, this is great. We really would love to carry it, but we just wish there was a cartoon show to go with it. And they all just kind of looked at each other and went, oh, there is. Did we forget to mention the cartoon show? And then as they're walking out, they're like, oh my God, we got to figure out how to make a cartoon show. And then they went into their next pitch with Walmart or something. And they were like, here's the toys. And also there's going to be a cartoon show. And the people at Walmart were like, that's great. We can't really work with a cartoon show though. We really wish it was a comic book line. And they all kind of looked at each other and went, there's going to be a comic book line too. And then on their way out, we're like, oh my God, we have to figure out how to make a comic book. So I just love it.
And He-Man's going to meet Superman.
I know, it's we just got it. They're just making it up as they go, which really is kind of inspiring energy in a world where I often feel like everyone has everything figured out but me. It's like, no, just make it till you make it. But yeah, all that to say, I got to, thanks to the people at Mattel who helped me get these resources, I got to sort of dive into a little bit of everything from the 80s till now and all the different iterations of Masters that have existed.
Not to name drop, but I've chatted with Brian Weiss, who does the Toys That Made Us, and every time I have to mention that I love those shows that he did, and it
so great.
Really, it's a nostalgic trip for me.
Yeah, that was one of the when I first started working with Mattel as sort of my prep for my He-Man school day. I asked them, I was like, what do I need to read or study ahead of time? Because I really don't know much about this franchise. And that was the only thing they told me to watch. Was they said, watch The Toys That Made Us, and we will teach you everything else. So they're also big fans of that show. And then I ended up watching the whole show. They told me to just watch the Masters of the Universe episode, and I was like, this is great. I want to watch this whole thing. I want to learn about every toy. Tell me about what acid trip were the Ninja Turtles born from? Like, please. It's a great show.
Did you watch the old 80s movie?
The Masters of the Universe?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. I was told not to, but I did. It's a movie.
So, if given the chance, would you like to write another Teela-centric book, or is there? I mean, it seems like you have enough that you could do an Evelyn kind of companion book. But is there any other characters that you would like to?
Oh, A Girl Can Dream. I would love to do an Evelyn book. Let's get her origin story out there. Yeah, I love this world. I love doing the stuff where you work within the IP, the Marvel stuff, the Mattel stuff has all been so much fun for me. Like I was such a nerdy kid. My particular brand was Star Wars more than Masters of the Universe, but I was like a nerd kid when it was not cool to be a nerd. And I loved I grew up reading, I read a lot, but I read a lot of like franchise novels, like the books that you would get from the Scholastic Book Fair. And they were like in those cheap little paperbacks and you would order them in through your school, like the Star Wars series that they did through that. The ones that are now not canon anymore because they threw them all out when Disney bought Lucasfilm. Like I loved those books. And like those were the books that made me a reader. And so I feel like my 10-year-old self would be less impressed with the fact that I'm an author and more impressed with the fact that I'm an author for like Masters of the Universe and Marvel and stuff like that. Because those are the books that made me, and those are the books that made me a reader. So it's always like, it's such a fulfillment of a childhood dream to get to work in these bigger franchises. And I know I wasn't an OG Masters of the Universe fan, but I truly am now. I have purchased merch for myself on my own dime, as you can see behind me here with my Teela right behind me. And I would love to dive more into this world. I think there's so much more to explore. I'd love to do more Teela, love to write about Evil Lynn. I really like the character of Duncan, who's Teela's father and the Man-at-Arms. I think I would do... Call me, Mattel. You have my number. Let's talk about our future together.
Well, aside from the toys, one of my other, not that this show's about me, but one of my other memories is
I want to hear.
When I was 6 years old, I broke my arm one summer, and my friend had his birthday party, and it was a bounce house, and I couldn't go in the bounce house because of my broken arm.
Oh no!
And so his mother took me to the bookstore and bought me a He-Man and the Masters like picture book, and so that's kind of a memory that's always stuck with me.
And see, that's why I think working in these franchises like the Marvel stuff and especially Masters of the Universe is so fun and such a special thing to get to be part of. Is that these characters in this world mean so much to so many people. And it's like it's stories that people have carried with them from their childhood. And everyone I talk to has a memory attached to Masters of the Universe. Everybody knows it. Everybody has some association with it from the 80s, from the original cartoon. And it's just like, it's so great to hear things like that and to hear stories like that and to know that I'm getting to work in a world that has been so important to so many people and that has really like shaped the adults that so many people are. It's such a privilege and such a treat. And so I'm glad you have good He-Man childhood memories. There's no disappointment like not being able to jump in the bouncy castle. Oh, it's devastating.
So as we kind of wrap up here, is there anything else about the book that you wanted to make sure people knew about? Maybe we didn't cover?
I don't know. I don't think so. I just I want people to go see the movie and then I want them to read the book. I think it's going to be a cinematic event. I don't know. It's just like, it's fun. It's 2 hours where you can just sort of like fall into this giant blockbuster and turn off your brain and just have a good time. It reminded me of seeing a lot of the like Marvel movies when they were like big summer event movies. And then you're going to come out of it and be like, that was so fun. I had such a great time. How do I continue to live in this world? Then you're going to pick up a copy of Teela, Daughter of Eternos. You're going to experience it all again, except in a longer format.
Do you know if there's going to be an audio book of the
I think there are plans for an audiobook. I haven't heard specifically, but let's hope. I love audiobooks. I listen to a ton of audiobooks. So it's always like my favorite thing in the world when my stuff gets adapted, or not adapted, but when it gets produced in audio. And it's always fun when you have a really good audiobook reader to see like what they bring to the project as well. Because they bring their own interpretations and voices and jokes.
So, as we wrap up, why don't you give one last pitch for the book and where people can find out more from you?
Yeah, my pleasure. So the last pitch for the book for Teela, Daughter of Eternos, is that it is set in the world of the Masters of the Universe in a time gap that happens in the new upcoming film, but can be read by any fan of Masters of the Universe, even if you haven't seen the film yet. Doesn't like spoil anything. It could actually be good pre-reading for the film, even though it only comes out like 3 days before the film, so you'd have to read kind of fast, but you can do it. I believe in you. So it is about a young woman, a young warrior who has trained all her life to be the captain of the guards for a royal family that has been dethroned, and to protect a world that no longer exists. And her home has been taken over by a man with no face, and he's very evil. And now she's trying to reorient herself in this new world and figure out who she is in a new world order that she didn't ever expect to have to face. And she is trying to protect her family. She's trying to protect her home. She feels tremendous responsibility to protect the people in the place she loves. And as a result of that, she makes a questionable alliance with a woman whose name is literally evil. But what could go wrong? So it's fun. It's lots of, it's action, it's adventure, it's about coming of age. And it's just, I hope it's a great time. I hope people just have a good time reading this book in the same way that I think they'll have a really good time seeing the film. And you can find me on Instagram at the Mackenzi Lee, which is TheMackenzielee. And on my website, which is mackenzie.lee.com. And that's sort of it. I don't hang out in too many places on the internet, other than the New York Times crossword
Smart
app.
move.
Yeah, come challenge me. Come challenge me to a crossplay game. You can find me there.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time this evening. And if you do have the opportunity to write another Teela or Evelyn book, or let's see, I'm trying
Mossman,
to pick a
Buzz Off.
Mossman.
So
Snake
many. I mean, really, I would like
book-
to write. I would really like to write from the point of view of Cringer the Battle Cat. That would be my ideal next book. I'll be honest, the Cringer origin story.
And remember that his nemesis could be Skeletor's panther. So
Perfect. Oh my gosh, the book writes itself.
But again, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me, Chad.
And I'm halfway through the book, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to the audiobook too.
Thank you. It means a lot coming from people who are fans of, who I know are such big fans of the show and the franchise and everything. I'm glad that those people in particular are enjoying it. So I'm glad you're enjoying it.
So pick up the book when it comes out on June 2nd, and be sure to see the movie when it comes out on the 5th, right? Is that 5th? Yeah.
Yes. Tuesday,
All right,
Friday.
All right. Well, thank you, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.